Hello everyone, we're going to have a look at how to complete this case study, Fruit of the Loops. So let's start by looking at the orders worksheet. You'll see here we have a list of about 20,000 or so orders. We've got the order codes in this column, the client codes to whom the orders were sent out to, the order date, we've got the product ordered, we have an order metric here, the quantity ordered over here. First thing we're going to do to complete this table is to calculate, or rather extract, the name of the month for each order. To do that, we can use the text function is equal to text of, and in the text function you can see there are two arguments. The first one is value, which would be a number value, in this case the date, and then the second argument, which is format text, is how you want to display that number value. So we're going to take order date as our number value, and for the format we're going to put in quotes 4 M's and close the parentheses. You can see here we've extracted the name of the month for all these dates. Scroll down a bit, right? You can see for March and so on. Okay. Next, we want to figure out which quarter each date is in. So for this information, we're going to go to the parameters worksheet and have a look over here. In this table, we've got the name of each month in the first column and the quarter they're associated to in the second column. To do a search for the quarter number based on the month name, we can use the VLOOKUP function. So here we're going to do a VLOOKUP on this date, and we're going to look for it in this range over here. Now you can see, because I've named this range over here T underscore quarter, when I select it, we have that over here. Now let me just delete this for a second, and I'm going to go back to the original worksheet. So let me just delete the whole thing. So I'm going to do a VLOOKUP. I could click in here, but just so that the formula is easier to read, without the table syntax, I'm just going to type in the reference for this date, which is D5. I'm going to look for D5, not D5, E5, because we want the name of the month. We're going to look for this in our table that I called T quarter. And in that table, since the quarter numbers were in the second column of that range, I'm going to look for number 2 for column index number. Remember that column index number, this argument has to be either a number or a function that returns a number. For the final argument, since we're looking for exactly the word January in the first column of the T quarter table, we need to use false for an exact match. Now sometimes you might expect a number and you get a date, or you expect a date and you get a number. All you need to do is change the number format for those values. So I'm going to select this entire range and set it to general, no specific format. Next, in this range for order metric, for future use, we'd like to insert a validation list where the user, instead of typing kg or unit, can just select kg or unit from a list. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this entire range from H5 all the way down to the end. To do that, you keep Control, or if you're on a Mac, Command, you keep that button pressed, keep the Shift button pressed, and tap once on the down arrow to select the entire range. Once you've done that, you can either use on Windows a keyboard shortcut, which is Alt-A-V-V, such as this, Alt, and you can see when you press Alt, you get all these letters appearing. We want to go to the data ribbon, which is shown with an A, so I'm going to press A, and then we want to go to the validation list. You can see there's a V, press V once, and then data validation, V again. Right, so I did it slowly here, just to show you if you do it quickly, Alt, A, V, V, and you automatically bring up your data validation menu. What we want is not to allow any value, but one of two values. So we're going to choose list, and in list, you can either select a range, maybe there's a range on the side with the word unit and kg in it, and select that. Or you can hard code the values directly in here. So I'm going to type it unit, semicolon, kg. Press OK. And now each one of our cells here has got a validation list in it. So the idea is this. We have products here and how they were ordered. So for example, for the first order, there were 56 lemons ordered, but for the second one, there were 14 kilos of oranges. Right, so based on the order metric, the sale price is going to differ. So let's have a look at the sale prices in the parameters worksheet. Now in class, I changed these unit prices because obviously they were kind of strange. In fact, I might as well do it here. Price per kilo. I'm going to make that 132, and for the watermelon I'll make it 105, and just so that we have something a little neater over here. So first of all, just to be aware of the names, this entire range from G4 to F35 I've named T_fruits. The first column of this range contains all the names of the fruits. The second column, the grams, number of grams per fruit. In the third column, we have the price per kilo. And in the fourth column, a price per unit. Right, so 1 kilo of apples would be 8.76, but just one apple would be 1.71. So depending on the order made, right? For example here, if lemons were purchased by the unit, we would need to calculate the unit price for lemons, and then to calculate the order value, would take that unit price per lemon and multiply it by 56. Whereas here for oranges, we would need to get the kilo price per for oranges and then multiply that by 14. So let's go back here to have a look. Price per kilo is in the third column of this range, and price per unit is in the fourth column. Now we want Excel to automatically know which column to get the price from. Do we get it from the third one or the fourth one? To do that, we're going to use a logic test. We're going to tell Excel, look at in the orders worksheet over here, we're going to tell Excel, look at the value here with its unit or kilogram. If it's marked as unit, then get the price from the fourth column in the T fruits table. And if it's kilos, then get the price from the third column. Right? Third column, fourth column. Okay, so this is how we'll do it. In the order value, to calculate the order value, we first need to get the price for the order, per unit or per kilo, and then multiply it by the quantity. So let's start by already including the quantity element, which is in I5. I'm going to say multiply this quantity by, and now we need to tell Excel which price to get, price per kilo, price per unit. So for this, we need to put an if function. We're going to say if the value in H5 is equal to, let's take unit. If the purchase has been made in units, then we need to go get the price in the fourth column, right? So I'm going to say do a VLOOKUP of the name of the fruit in G5, right, the fruit ordered, and go get it from the T fruits table. The price per unit is in the fourth column of that table, so we're going to put 4 semicolon. We want exactly lemon and not something approximately lemon, so again we'll pick false and close the parentheses, right? Note our VLOOKUP, we've got a red parentheses opening here, we close the red parentheses at the end. Now for the third argument, the value if false argument, meaning if H5 is not unit, in this case it would be kg, there's no other possibility. In that case, we want Excel to look for the price of the fruit in G5 in the T fruits table, and this time we want it to get the price from the third column in the T fruits table, and also with an exact match. Now I'm putting false, you can always put 0, right? 1 for true, 0 for false. Close the parentheses once for our VLOOKUP, and now we need to close a second parentheses for that if function that we opened here. Right? The if function opens with the black parentheses, closes with the black parentheses here. And there we go, we've got the sale price for all of these. Finally, we have the delivery platform. For each of these orders, we want to display which platform where the delivery is made from. For this information, we need to first figure out, based on the client code, we need to figure out, well, where does this client live? Right? Because if you look in the parameters worksheet, the delivery platforms are determined by the state that the client was in. Right? To know which state each client was in, we can see that in the clients table. Note that I've named this range. Have I given her a name? T clients. Okay, well, I guess I probably just selected wrong. Anyway, this is the T clients table. Note if you click here and choose T clients, we can see the entire selection. Now in the clients table, the client code is in the first column, the name of the client is in the second, the city in the third, and the state is in the fourth column. So to figure out which delivery platform each order is being made in, we first need to figure out the name of the state, right, by doing a VLOOKUP on the client code for each order. Right, we can see each order has got a client code. So let's start with that. Right, we can build this step by step. First thing we're going to do is do a VLOOKUP of our client code in C5, and we're going to look for this client code in our T clients table. Now let's say we forgot which column in the T clients table the name of the state is in, right? We know it's 4, but let's say we forgot. What you can do is, while you're writing a formula, if you want to pause, click in the beginning, right, before that equal sign, and put a single quote, and you can press enter. Right? This way you don't lose what you've written so far, and you sort of put a pause on the function. Let's go have a look in the clients table just to be sure. It's in the fourth column of our clients table. Let's go back here. I'm going to reactivate this function by removing that quote. Go back to the end. For column index number, we're going to put 4. And since we want exactly that client code and not something approximate, we will pick false. So right now, all we've done is figure out what state that order is made in. Using the result of this VLOOKUP function we have, right, we're going to use this Washington is just a result of, oops, I go back up. Washington is just a result of this VLOOKUP function. Using this value, we're going to do a VLOOKUP on this name of the state in our T delivery platform table, and go get the associated delivery platform in the second column. So what we'll do is that's our VLOOKUP that gives us the name of the state. I'm just going to cut it with Control X so that we can start the next function, which is going to be a VLOOKUP of, and I'm going to paste that previous VLOOKUP we put. Remember, I didn't copy the equal sign, I just put the VLOOKUP. We're going to look for this value, which gives us the name of the state. We're going to look for this in our T delivery platform table. The delivery platform is in the second column, and we also want an exact match with false. And close one parenthesis over here and press enter. So now we've got all our delivery platforms done. And that's it for this table. Okay, now let's have a look at the invoice worksheet. We have all the information we need over here, right, for our orders. And now we're going to build our invoice. First thing we're going to do is allow the user to select a valid client code. Right, so in here we want another validation list where a user can go get a valid client code from this list over here, from a list of clients. Just to make it a little neater, I'm going to sort this smallest to largest, so we've got then client codes in ascending order. Another thing we can do is name this entire range. We could name all of them, there's no real need, we just really need to name this one. So I'm going to select this entire range of client codes and call it valid client codes and press enter. So now this entire range is valid client codes. Just to show you, I'm just going to click away. In fact, I'm going to click in another worksheet. If I click in here and go look for valid client codes and click it, Excel is going to take us here and show us this entire list. So going back to the invoice, in this cell we want to put a validation list. I'm going to use my shortcut Alt-A-V-V. If you're on a Mac, unfortunately you can't do that, but since you'll be using the school computers, you can use that Alt-A-V-V. Otherwise, you go to the data ribbon, click on this validation button, and use this. Right, so here we also want a list, and the source of a list, we could go and manually select that range from the clients table, but we called it valid client list. So put an equal sign and type in that name you created, valid client list. Hopefully I've written it the same way. And press OK. Okay, I didn't write it the same way. Let me just have a look. It's called valid client codes. Okay, Alt-A-V-V list equals valid client codes. Press enter. And now here we've got our list of valid client codes. Here for billing quarter, we'll put a simple validation list here where the user can type in choose 1, 2, 3, or 4. Alt-A-V-V. Allow list. I'm going to put 1, semicolon 2, semicolon 3, semicolon 4. Press OK, and there's our list. Now based on a client code, let's select one here. I'm going to select the billing quarter. Based on the client code we enter here, we want to display the client name, city, state, and postcode in these lines. All this information we can find in the clients table. Right, so name, city, state, and postcode. We can see the name is in the second column, city in the third, state in the fourth, and postcode in the fifth. I'm going to say VLOOKUP. Look for this client code here in our clients table, and the name of the client is in the second column, and we want false for an exact match. I'm going to copy this formula with Control C. I'm going to press Shift, keep it pressed, and click till here. Right click and say paste formulas. So one thing we need to fix is when we copy this formula down, our F7 is going to become F8 and then F9 and so on. So we need to make sure that it always looks at F7. So we're going to lock this by first selecting that F7 in the formula and pressing F4 on your keyboard. Or you can manually put in the dollars. The main thing is to make sure that this F7 reference doesn't change. Right, so that's our formula. I'm going to copy it again. Press Shift, click down here, right click, and choose Paste Formulas. So right now all our formulas are looking in the second column. I'm going to go in here, make this column 3, press F2 to go in here, make this column 4, and then press F2 to go into edit mode and make this column 5. Let me adjust that. There we go. So we've got the client code here and the client's address over here, name and address. Once we've done this, we want to calculate, not that far, but we want to calculate from here to here. Right? We want to select, we want to display in here the total sale for this client in that billing quarter for this year for each one of these fruits. And so we're doing a sum of the values in our order values range over here, which I've named order value. We want to do a sum of all these values based on multiple criteria. So for example, if you look at this one over here, which I'm going to, I'll put it in a light yellow. In here, we want to write a formula that will sum all those order values, but only if the name of the fruit is apple, the client number is 4033, the billing quarter is 1, and well, we'll leave the year out for now, right? We'll imagine all the sales are in 2022. But so just to keep it simple, are sets of criteria: A, that the fruit is apple, B, that the client is 4033, and C, that the billing quarter is 1. If we look in here, we've got the client codes in here, we've got the quarter in here, and the fruit in here. So only when these values in here match our criteria do we want to take into account the value in the order value range. So for this we need to do a sum ifs, right? Sum IFS. There's a sum if function which is not very useful because it's limited to one criteria. So might as well just always use sum IFS. The first argument in the sum IFS, sum ifs function is the sum range, meaning what is a range that contains the values you want to add. The range we want is the order value range. For the next set of arguments where it says criteria range 1, criteria range 2, 3, and so on, it doesn't matter what order you pick your criteria ranges in, as long as you group your criteria range and your criteria together. And so let's start with the client number. That's going to be our first client range. We're going to say it's called order client code in our orders worksheet. I'm going to say add all the order values when the value in the order client code range is apple. that's wrong. When the value in the order client code is this one, right, in F7. Now we're going to want to copy this formula all the way down, so we want to make sure that Excel only looks in F7 for the client codes. So I'm going to lock that. The next criteria range, let's take billing quarter, right? So we're going to say order, and we don't have the billing quarter set up here. So we're going to have to put a pause on the function again. I'm going to click here before the equal sign, put a quote, and press enter. And this is how we can set up names for vertical ranges, right? We've got a few of them set up here. We've got order client code, the order code, the date, metric, product, and so on. But we don't have the order month or order quantity set up yet, right? So this is how we can set it up. Because our data is formatted as a table, we want to make sure that we select the first row in our selection. So click anywhere in the headers of the table, and then press Control A or Command A on a Mac to select everything, right, just to make sure. If I'm going to scroll all the way back up, just the important thing to make sure is that the first row is selected, right, with the values you want to use for the names. Then on Mac, on Windows, the shortcut is Control Shift. You keep Control Shift press and then press F3 to bring up this menu. Otherwise, if you forget the shortcut, or if you're on Mac, you need to go to the Formulas ribbon and then select this Create from Selection. You'll recognize it with this icon. Click on that, and in here we want to create names from values only in the top row. We're not interested in creating names using the client codes. We only want to use what's in the top row. So I'm going to uncheck right column and only keep top row selected. Sorry, right column would be this one, right? We don't want that, just the top row. Click OK, and just to check, now we've got our order month and order quarter, right? That's the one we want. Going to go back to our formula here, reactivate it by removing the quote, and now continue. So we want Excel to look at all the order quarters and only take into account the ones that are equal to this. This F9 I'm going to block as well, since we only want to look in this cell for the order quarter. So we've got our two sets of criteria here, and now we need to add the final one, which is the product. So I'm going to say look at all the order products and only do a sum, right? Only sum the order values when the client code is this, when the client code is what's in F7, when the order quarter is what is in F9, and when the order product is what is in B10. So these two we lock, right? Because these are always going to be the same. But the order product, as we copy it down, it'll be apple, apricot, and so on. So we don't lock that B10. Close the parentheses. I'm going to keep Control press Enter. This way I stay in the same cell. And then copy this down. So again, if I were to copy it down, you can see it sort of breaks the formatting with these lines because it's copying that border which is in the invoice. And so if you ever need to avoid that kind of mess up, what you can do is just copy the formula, press Shift, click till the end, so you've got all this selected, then right click and choose Paste Formula. The result is the same, but at least we don't have those lines across. And I'll put this back the way it was. Okay, so now we have our invoice set up, meaning we can choose just to have a look. Let's pick a different client number. Let's pick a different billing quarter. You can see everything updates automatically. Go back to the first one and pick billing quarter 1. Okay. Now if we want to know what is the total invoice, we just need to do a sum of all of this. I'm gonna click on C10, Control Shift down arrow to select the entire range. We could lock the range, but there's no real need over here since we're not copying anything anywhere. Going to close the parentheses and press enter. So for loyalty, discount, tax, and all that, well, might as well show you since we did this in class. The loyalty discount. To figure out the loyalty discount, we're going to have to go through several steps. So we'd write this formula all in one go, but just to break it down for you in several steps. To figure out the loyalty discount, first, based on how long the client's been a customer, first we need to figure out, well, when did the customer join? One information we have is a client number. Based on this client number, we can go get the date they joined in the client's table in the 6th column. So let's start with that. So I'm going to let's say that's our step 1. Right? So our step 1 is going to be a VLOOKUP of our client code, which is here in F7. We're going to say look for the client code in our tClients table. And when you found it, go look in the 6th column with an exact match to get the join date. Right, so here we have 42,490. We want a date, so let's just set this as a short date. And so that's the date the client joined. Right, let's have a look. 4033 joined 30th April 2016. Just to confirm, 4033 joined in 30th April 2016. Now that we have this first bit of information, the second thing we want to do is figure out, well, how old is this date, right? How long, since the loyalty discount is based on how many months the client has been a customer. We can see that here in the parameters worksheet, right? Based on the number of years the customer has been a client, they get a discount, meaning from 1 up to 1 year, they get no discount, right? From 0 to 1, they get no discount. If they've been a client 1, 2, or 3 years, they'll get a 4% discount. If they've been a client 4 or 5 years, they get an 8% discount. And if they've been a client 6 or more years, they get a 12% discount. And we're going to do a VLOOKUP. We're going to use this table with a VLOOKUP, but instead of using an exact match, we're going to use an approximate match since we're dealing with a scale. If you're just to a quick recap on how to do VLOOKUP with a scale, I'm going to add a separate worksheet here and call it VLOOKUP and give you an example. So the first rule with a VLOOKUP with an approximate match is that the first column needs to have numeric values. Right, so wait, sorry, we're going to say score, and here we'll say grade. Okay, so the first column in our table has to have numeric values, and we'll start with 0. Let's say anyone who gets a score from, let's say, 0 to 20 gets an F. Anyone who gets between 20 and 40, and when I say 20 and 40, I mean from 20 to 39.999, they'll get an E. From 40 to, that doesn't look quite right. Okay, well, let's say 40 to 60, they get a D. 60 to 70, they get a C. Wow, these are pretty harsh. Let's make that 10, 30, well, okay, 30, 50. From 50 to 70, they get a C. From 70 to, let's say, 85, let's say, they get a B. And if they get 85 or more, they get an A. Right, so you need to build, if you're building tables for a scale, you need to build it like this. Your first column needs to have numeric values in ascending order. And so the idea would be this. Let's say we have build a tool over here where we're going to enter a score here. So let's say 52, right? And we want to know what grade would this person get. Now looking at this table, we can see that someone who would get a 52, meaning between 50 and 70, I'll put that in italic, their associated score would be a C, right? Let me put these in bold so we can clearly see. Right? So to use this, we're going to say, do a VLOOKUP of our lookup value is the only information we have, which in this case is the score, 52. We're going to say, look for this and here. And out of habit, I'm just going to block that table array, the range, right, the lookup range. Important thing is that lookup value, that 52, Excel needs to find it, in this case, approximately in the first column of our selection. The column that contains the grades in this range, and we can see it's in the second column, so we're going to put 2. And finally, we're not looking for an exact match, right? Because if we look for 52 in the first column, we would never find it. But if we use true with an approximate match, Excel is going to start looking down here. It says that 52, no, that's not 52. Whoop, we passed it. So it's going to go back to the previous one and then go to the second column and get that C. All right, so I'm going to say true, approximate match, close the parentheses, and there you go. There's your C. Let's try it out with a different score. If we put in, let's say, 12, we should get an E. If we put in 90, right, 90 is 85 or more, we get an A. And that's how you'd use VLOOKUP with an approximate match to look for a value on a scale. So going back to the invoice, that's what we're going to do. So the first thing we need to figure out is, well, how many years old is this date, this 30th April 2016. And for that, there's a handy function called dateDiff, which doesn't officially exist, but it's still there. DATEDIF. Got to open the parentheses, and then you can see it's activated. So dateDiff has 3 elements. The first one is, what is the earliest date you're considering? In this case, it's the 30th for 2016. The second argument is, what's the latest date we're considering? Well, we want to know how old that date is compared to today. So we'll use that today function. And the third argument, since we want to know how many years it's been, we need to put Y for year in quotes. If you want to know the number of months, you will put M in quotes. Close the parentheses. Let's have a look. 5. And this date is 5 years old. Right, since it's not quite 6 years since 30th April, it's going to be 5 until we would be, 30th of April. Okay. Let me display these formulas so you can see them. Okay. So, third step. Now that we've got the number of years it's been, we're going to do a VLOOKUP on this number of years in our worksheet here. We're going to look for that 5 approximately, right? In this column, we can see 5 years would give us an 8% discount, right? Since 5 is between the 4 and the 6. So we're going to say, do a VLOOKUP of this 5 over here. Look for it in our T discount table. Get the discount in the second column. And this time we want an approximate match. So we put true. And there's our 8%, 0.08. Finally, once we've done that, our final step is to multiply this 8% by our total over here. So we can calculate 8% of this total, right? So we can figure out what the discount is. So just need to say multiply this 8% by our total over here. And there you go, that's our discount. So to show you how we would type that in here, we can do it step by step. First, we're going to say look for our client code in the client's table. Get the information from the 6th column with an exact match. This part of our function is going to get the client join date. Next, I'm going to click in the beginning of our function over here after the equal sign and say date diff. This VLOOKUP is giving us that client date, right, the join date. We're going to say calculate how many years there are between this date and today, and show us the result in years. Once we've done this, I'm going to go back here and say, now that we have the number of years, look for this number of years in our T-discount table and get the information from the 2nd column with an approximate match with true. This value here will give us the 8%, which we're going to multiply by our total. Now don't worry, I won't give you embedded functions to this degree in the test, right? But just to show you, we can break it down to steps or build it here in steps. Finally, we want to calculate the tax on the discounted invoice. And let's have a look in the parameters worksheet. Our tax is here. And I named this cell with this 5% and named it tax. So all we need to do is calculate the tax on the discounted invoice, meaning the difference between this and this. Right? That's our discounted invoice. And we're going to multiply this by the cell, the value we named tax. And there's your tax. And finally, the total would be this total minus, we're going to take away the loyalty discount and then add the tax. And there's our total. So now that we have our invoice done, let's go to the report. And what we'll do is here right now we're just calculating sales for each region, just so that we can go over the 3 different statistical functions: sum ifs, count ifs, and average ifs. Let me just move this out of the way. Zoom out. Put that down here. Okay. Going to duplicate this. I'll just select the whole thing, copy it, paste it once here, and then paste it here. Okay. So what we're going to do is here calculate the total sales for each delivery platform and each fruit. And then next to that over here, we'll ignore Q1 for now. And it's the same step as what you did before, just to keep things simpler and keep this video shorter. In the 2nd column, we're going to calculate not the total sales, but how many sales were made for each fruit in each region. And then the last one, we're going to calculate the average sale in dollars or euros, whatever it is, for each delivery platform and fruit. So let's start with the first one here. Our calculation now is not just going to be in one column, we're going to have it based on multiple criteria, right? So we're going to write the formula once, copy it across, and then copy it down so that all the calculations show us the total sales for each region, each delivery platform, and each fruit. So for this, we're going to start off with the sum ifs function. Our sum range is that order value range we looked at earlier. We're going to say add all these orders when the order product is equal to apple. Now, before we continue, note that all our products we're going to use as a criteria are all in column C, right? Whether it's C4, C5, C6, they're all in column C. So when you refer to a cell, right, your criteria, which is in a column, make sure you lock the column reference, right? So you need a dollar before the column reference, right? $C4. We're not locking the 4 because when we copy the formula down, we want Excel to then look at apricot, avocado, and so on. You can do semicolon. Our second criteria range is that order delivery platform. Which is not here for some reason. Okay, I press again, put that little quote. Let's have a look what's going on. Sorry, it's just called delivery platform. I should have called it order delivery platform. Okay, let's go back here. And there it is. We're going to say add all the values, all the order values when the order product is what we have in this column, right? So $C4, and where the delivery platform is equal to south, right? For right now, we just want apple and south. Now note that our delivery platforms, the south, northeast, midwest, and west, are all in row 3, right? So when you refer to your criteria, which is in a row, make sure you lock only the row, $3. We could do, why not? Let's just add the quarter since we have it there. And where the order quarter is 1. Right, so it's including whatever years. We're just looking at order quarter 1. Make sure you lock that reference, right? Because the quarter 1, this is not going anywhere. We always want Excel to look at B2 for the quarter number. Close the parentheses, Control Enter. I'm going to put that in dollars. And let's remove the decimal places to make it neater. I'm going to copy this formula across and then copy it down. And now we've got the total sales for each fruit and each delivery platform for quarter 1. We can see if we change this to quarter 2, everything updates. We can do the same thing here for the number of orders, right? So for that, we're going to use a count IFS function, and we're basically going to use the same principle as earlier, except there's no sum range. We just have criteria range and criteria. So our first criteria is order product. Our order products are all in column L, so when we select L4, make sure that you block only the column L. Our second criteria range is going to be the delivery platform. And our criteria is here, still in row 3. So make sure that you only lock the row number. And finally, since we're doing the order quarters, I'm going to say look at the order quarter, which is in K2 and only in K2. So make sure you lock it completely. And there you go. So in the first quarter, in the South delivery platform, there were 103 orders of apple, regardless what the sale amount was. Copy that to the side and copy it down. So that's the number of orders. And finally, let's see what the average sale amount was for apples. We could go further, and why not? Just mix it up. I'm going to put a validation list here and put in In hindsight, I'm thinking maybe the calculation won't have much sense, but let's say, because if they're ordered in kilos, I mean, they're still units sold, but just to mix it up, right? Let's say we want to know what was the average quantity of apples, apricots sold if they were bought by the kilo for Q1. Just to add one more criteria in here. So for this, we're going to, since we want to know the average amount, we're going to use the average IFS function, which functions exactly the same way as sum IFS. Only thing that changes is the name of the function, right? It's average ifs instead of sum ifs. Where it says average range, it would be the same range you would choose if you're doing a sum ifs, right? The sum range. Here we want to know an average of the quantity, right? So order quantity. That's the range we want to calculate an average of when the order product is what we have in here. And since all our products are in column U, make sure you only lock the U reference, right? $U4. When the delivery platform is whatever is in here, right? So our V3, all our delivery platforms are in row 3, so we make sure we only lock the 3. We'll keep that order quarter in there. When the order quarter is this, right, so I'm going to lock that. And finally, the order metric, we only want to consider when these, the average quantity sold when they were sold per kilo, right? So I'm going to use this as my final metric. Close the parentheses. And that's the average order, average quantity, right? Let's reduce the decimals, and we'll leave 1 decimal. Copy this across, copy it down, and that's the average quantity ordered for each fruit, each delivery platform when they were ordered per kilo. We can change it up. We can say, well, let's say we want to know when they were sold by unit, and here we go. Right, so this is the average when they were bought by kilo. This is the average number of kilos sold for each fruit. And if we choose units, this was the average number of fruit, right? Units of fruit sold. Of course, this calculation doesn't have much sense like this if we do it like that, right? Make more sense to just do an average of the order value, right, the sales, but just wanted to change it up. So we have our tables done, and to finish up, go back here. Let's see what else we could do. Just to add one more calculation, so I'm going to insert a column. I'll insert it at the end. Control Shift plus to enter a column, and we're going to call this let's say alert. Right. So what we're going to do is display something. Let's say display the word OK, or not. Let's display the word alert if the order month is January and the product ordered was lemons. Let's say we need to do a recall, so we'll display the word recall, right? So for every order of lemons made in January, we want to display an alert, right, and say recall. It'd be a little late to recall the products at this point, but anyway. So for this, first thing we need to do is check both situations, right? First, we need to check if the order month is equal to January. So when you have multiple tests to perform and you want to verify that all the tests are satisfied, meaning that the name of the month is January and that the name of the product is lemon, right? We have two verifications, two tests to perform. We use the AND function. So we're going to say AND. Our first test is going to be that the value of E5 is equal to January. So because I don't have the word January written anywhere, I'm going to put it in quotes here, January, semicolon. Our second logical test is going to be that the name of the fruit is lemon. So I'm going to say check that G5 is equal to lemon. Right, so let's just start with this part. The AND function is checking both things, right? It's checking that the name of the month is January and that the name of the product is lemon. So let's check what happens. We can see wherever it's January and lemon, we get true, and for everything else, we get false, right? Just to check here, we've got this true over here. They're lemons bought in January. So we're going to say if both these situations are correct, right? But then display recall, otherwise don't show anything. So for that, we're going to say if, open our parentheses, our logic test is already here, right? And the month is January and the product is lemon. If both of these give us true, right, and will give us true, and so if the result of this logic test is true, we want to display the word recall in quotes. Otherwise, we don't want to show anything. So I'll put two double quotes in there to show nothing. Close the parentheses, press enter. Now you can see only when those two situations are present, right? January for the month and lemon for the fruit, will we see recall. Let's do one more. I'm going to add another column. Add another column here. And in this case, let's say if the delivery platform is either west or south, right, regardless of everything else, if the delivery platform is either west or south, we want to display the word alert. And so, okay, maybe I'll call this recall, and I'll call this alert. So in this case, we're not checking for two situations to be true. We just want at least one of them to be true, right? The value in K5 can be either west, I mean, it can be west or midwest or south or northeast. It can't be two at the same time, right? It can't be west and south. So in this case, we're going to say or K5, or K5 is equal to west, in quotes, or K5 is equal to south. Right, we're doing two checks. We're checking if it's west or if it's south. If it's either one of these, right, if we look at this cell here, K5 is equal to west, that would give us true. K5 is equal to south, that would give us false. Now with an OR function, you can have as many logic tests as you want. Just one of these tests needs to give you true, so that OR gives you true. Let's have a look. All right, we can see wherever it's west or south, we get true. Just to clarify the previous function, right, that AND function. An AND function only gives you true if all the tests inside give you true. There can be as many tests as you want. If even one of them is false, the result of AND is false. AND can only give you true if all the tests in there give you true. And OR is the other way around, right? OR just needs one of the tests to give you true. There can be one true and 50 false. Just one true will make OR true. I'm going to say if this is the case, if the delivery platform is either west or south, say if, then display alert. That's not at all how we did. And there we go, alert. Otherwise, don't show anything with double quotes. Close my parentheses. And I forgot the other alert. I can't see that properly. Alert. Oh, I put a decimal instead of a semicolon. There we go. That looks fine. Okay, there we go. So, okay, lots of alerts. Well, let's change it up. Let's add one more thing in here, right? Just so that you can see how you can mix and match these. Let's say we only want to display alert if the delivery platform is west or south, like we've done, and the quantity ordered was more than 20. Right? Let me zoom in so that we can see better. Well, actually, you can see the formula over here, so I'm just going to change it here. So in this case, we're checking several things. The first thing is the value of K5 has to be west or south. We'll leave that the way it is. The second thing we're going to check is if the quantity ordered is greater than 20. So I'm going to say and the order quantity, which is in, I can't see what column that is, I, right? So and I5 is greater than 20. That's our first test. And the second test is that the delivery platform is either west or south. I'm going to close this parentheses for that AND function. Right, so this entire thing over here, this AND function, is our logic test. And what we're doing is we are checking that the quantity ordered, the order quantity is greater than 20, and the delivery platform is either west or south. Alright, so let's have a look. This one, the order quantity is greater than 20, and our delivery platform is either west or south. Again, don't worry, I won't give you nested functions like this, but just so that you understand how the AND function worked and how the OR function worked. Right, so you can ignore this part, but if we go back to the previous one, right here, one step back, there we go. Here, we're just checking if the delivery platform is west or south, then display alert, otherwise don't display anything. And those are our logic tests. So we've covered our text function over here to extract the name of a month. And just to mess around, I'll bring it back to this. Let's say we want to get the name of the day from a particular date. In this case, I'm going to put 4 Ds. If you're on the school computers, you're going to have to put 4 J's since they're on a French system, and J for jour. Right? So 4 Ds will extract the name of the day, whereas 4 M's will extract the name of the month. We looked at VLOOKUP with exact match. We looked at validation lists. We looked at the if function, the VLOOKUPs inside, right? So if that is unit, do a VLOOKUP on the fourth column, and if it's kilograms, then do a VLOOKUP on the third column. Here we've got one VLOOKUP inside another, right? To get the delivery platform, we first got the state the sale was made by using the client code, and once we got that value for the state, we then got the delivery platform using a second VLOOKUP. We've got our AND function here with an if, and we have our OR function over here with an if. In the invoice, we made a validation list here. We got our VLOOKUPs here. Did a sum ifs to get the invoice based on multiple criteria. We did a simple sum function here to get the total sum. And using these 4 steps, right, a VLOOKUP, date diff, another VLOOKUP, and then just a simple product, we got the discount. Tax was a simple calculation, and this was simple calculation. Our reports We looked at sum ifs with multiple criteria. We looked at count ifs, and we looked at average ifs. To wrap this up, now that we have all this information, let's sum it up with a pivot table. So we have all the metrics we need. Click anywhere in the data set, go to Insert, click on Pivot Table. Excel is going to detect our range, since we called it T orders, or rather I called it T orders, is going to give us the table range T orders. Otherwise, if you didn't name the range, it would say orders exclamation B5 to B whatever 20,000 something. We're going to create our pivot table in a new worksheet. I'm going to click OK. And first thing you want to think about doing whenever you create a pivot table or a table is to give it a name. So I'm going to, in the Analyze Pivot Table Analyze menu on the left where you've got options, I'm going to call this sales per, let's call it sales per region, right? Sales per delivery platform. Let's put the order value. That's the value we want to use in our sum ifs, right? So we're going to put the order value here. We can see right now we have the total order value, right? The sum of all the sales. I'm going to display this in dollars by clicking on this. If you're on a Mac, you'll just see an I symbol, and when you click on it, it will open your value field settings, right? So I'm going to click there. There's a value field settings. I'm going to replace the sum of order value and call it total sales. We're leaving it as a sum, and I'm going to go in number format and choose currency. Let's pick dollars, and I'm going to remove the decimal places, right, to keep it neat, because we don't really need to see cents in here. So I'm going to put a 0 and click OK, and click OK again. And there's our total sales, 2,120,927. So I'm going to break this down since we're doing sales per region. I'm going to put the delivery platform, click on it, and drag it down to columns. Let go. There are our columns. We've got Midwest, Northeast, South, and West. We don't need the grand total because we're going to build a chart from this. We're going to ignore that grand total. To get rid of that grand total, and click on Design. And here where you've got grand total, by default it'll always say on for rows and columns. I'm going to say off for rows and columns. Right? Get rid of it. And on the side over here, we're going to put the order date field. I'm going to click that, drag it down to rows, and let go. Now when you put date fields and you've got in your date range, if you've got dates that span several months or years, you'll have these values, years, quarters, and order date, which is really months, right? To expand this, you can see if we click the plus, we can expand these orders, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. If I expand that, we get the months. Right? To select what you want to see in here, you can right click, go to group, and just choose the elements we want, right? You've got months, quarters, and years. Let's say we only want to see months and years, don't want to see quarters. I'm going to click on quarters to remove it, click OK, and now you'll see we only have the months, no more quarters. Using this, we're going to put together a chart. In Pivot Table Analyze, first click anywhere in here, Pivot Table Analyze, going to select Pivot Chart, and there's our chart. We can, well, since we're doing a timeline, we could do this. Yeah, okay, well, in May, everything seems to really drop off, which is why you can see that. So let's take lines so that we can have our chart as a timeline, and click OK. There's our chart. I'm going to remove these ugly buttons by right-clicking on it and choose Hide All Field Buttons on Chart. Get rid of that. Let's make that a little bigger. I'm going to add a worksheet. and I'm going to, well, let me call this PT1 for pivot table 1. I'm going to call this PC1, or just I'll call it pivot chart. Right? So we're going to cut, I'm going to select this chart, right, by clicking on the edge, press Control X to cut it, go here, and Control V to paste it. That's our chart done over here. Let's add some tools to this. So in the pivot table analyze, we have a slicer button. Okay. Click on that. Slicers allow us to choose filters. So for the filters, let's pick the order product, and what else could we pick? Let's pick order product. We could add delivery platform, but there's no need. Let's just keep it simple. There's an order product. We can see we have our slicer, which is quite extensive, so maybe it'd be neater if we had them in 2 columns. So with the slicer selected, in the slicer menu here, you can see columns by default it says 1. I'm going to make that 2. Expand that a little bit here, so that we have everything nice and neat. Making sure we have a slicer selected, Control X to cut it, and go to the pivot chart, and I will paste it in here. Let's go back to the pivot table, and we're going to add another tool in here, which is the timeline. So in the Analyze ribbon, you've got Insert Timeline. Excel is going to detect which fields in our source actually contains dates, right? There's only order date in there. So we check that, click OK. There's our timeline. I'm going to Control X to cut it. Well, Excel takes its sweet time. Okay. And go here and paste it. I'll put that down here. Okay, so we've got the slicer set up so that right now we can see sales for each region and for each month. In fact, let's put this below, right? So it's not in the, on the side over here. So with this chart selected in our I didn't give it a name. Well, we could give it a name here, chart 1, right? We could change the name. But let's go in design, and where it says chart element, what we're going to do is put the legend not on the right. We're going to put the legend at the bottom, like so. Click that, and there we go. Next, just to show you what happens if we, let's say we only want to see sales in, let's say January to June of 2020, right? We can see the chart now, updates. Let's say we only want to see sales of, I don't know, fruits beginning with the letter B, right? So I'm going to click B for banana, keep Control pressed, and then select all the other ones I want. Right, so now our chart updates and only shows us the sales from January to June for bananas, blackberries, and blueberries. Let's add one more chart. Now, of course, in the exam, I won't ask you to do all these things, right, that we're going to look at now, but since I'm making a little tutorial video that you're going to watch and hopefully watch a few times, right, you can use this as a recap. So we're going to add one more pivot table. I'm going to go back to orders worksheet, insert a pivot table, same as before, just click OK. I'm going to call that pivot table 2, and I'm going to name this pivot table, let's say sales per fruit, for example, right? So sales per fruit. We're going to put the order value down here. We are going to then fact, what we could do is we're going to put per fruit and per region, right? So, and then display this in dollars, just as before. Number format, currency, remove the decimals, put it in dollars, and click OK. I'm going to rename this sales per fruit, or total sales, whatever. Click OK. Now we have it all in dollars. Just to have a look, since we already did this calculation over here in the report, Midwest for Apple, the sales was 10,146. But okay, that's not really going to work, because here we did it for quarter one. Okay, we'll get to that. We can set that up. We have our timeline here, right? So we could actually set for quarter one, but again, it's going to be a little messy since it's going to take quarter one for 2020 and 2021, right? Which is where this tool can be a little better. Okay, so we've got our data set here, right? We've got our calculations done. Sales per fruit, Midwest, apples. This is revenue for all the orders. We're going to create a chart for this as well. Pivot chart. It's a little messy. What else could we have here? Pie chart? No way. I guess bar chart is the way to go. And click OK. There's our chart. And just as before, I'm going to right click and remove all the field buttons. Control X to cut it. Go to our pivot chart. Let me hide that. And paste it here. Like so. Okay, so here we've got sales for each fruit, right, and for each delivery platform. And it's kind of messy, right? Since over here we're looking at bananas, blackberries, and blueberries, the idea would be when we make our selections, right, for example, the period from January to June, and choose our fruits, that not just this chart updates, but this one updates as well, right? So what we want to do is, right now, this slicer and this timeline are linked to this pivot table, right? And from that pivot table, we got this chart, which is why this slicer is only affecting this pivot chart. We want both of these to affect this one as well. I'm going to remove the filters like so and show you how to link this chart to these slices. So to do that, right click on the slicer and the timeline, and in both of them go to report connections, and you will see that and this is why you should name pivot tables and also the worksheets. We can clearly see that this slicer is linked to our sales per region, which is in PT1, right? Our pivot table 1 worksheet. We're going to check this one so that's linked to both. Click OK. Do the same thing for the timeline, report connections. Check both of them, click OK. And now you'll see what happens. We're going to only look at sales. In fact, let's do this. We're going to do, since our 2020, only, if I remember right, the sales stop. Sorry, one second. Let me remove the filters. Our sales stop, that's first quarter. They stop in second quarter. So just to show you, I'm going to go to the report, and here I'm going to choose quarter 3, because we know that quarter 3 only contains orders from 2020. Right, so quarter 3 for all of these, we've got Apple South is 6281. So here I'm going to choose the third quarter, which would be, that's the first one, that's the third, second one. Let's just select July, August, September, and that's the third quarter. And let's pick apples. Well, actually, let's remove the filters and have a quick look here. For no, we do need to do it for apples and all. Okay, fine. So let's pick apples, just apples, and have a look here. For apples in the Midwest, it was 1,235. Is that what we got here? Not at all. Here we go. Midwest apples 1,235. Right? That's what we can see here. The blue is from Midwest. We put the cursor on it. We can see Midwest apples 1,235. Right? So anyway, we can now choose multiple products and get both charts updating. And that's what I wanted to show you. We can of course do more things with these charts, but well, we'll do that in class as we proceed. Right? There are all kinds of things we can do to format these charts. Okay, well, that's a bit of a long video, an hour and 20. Good luck on Wednesday. I'm going to stop the recording now.